Them Teachings presents Yakub, the man, the myth, and the mathematics.
For tens of thousands of years, until a small handful of people made their way out of Africa.
These beings with soaring imagination eventually flung themselves and their machines into interplanetary space. These beings with soaring imagination eventually flung themselves and their machines into interplanetary space.
We are all children of Africa. Children of Africa. This landscape has been home to humans 200,000 years.
We have come so far. All of this is cause for great celebration. We have come so far. This is a story about us.
Those early Europeans were people like you and me. But it is humbling when you see the challenges they faced. People like you and me overcame the Neanderthals. People like you and me made it through the Ice Age.
These beings with soaring imagination eventually flung themselves and their machines into interplanetary space.
We are not the only beings with personalities, minds and feelings. Chimpanzees have very clear personalities, minds and feelings.
Take a chimp brain, feed a weed, and let it go 2 or 3 more rounds of division. Out come symphonies and ideology.
Greetings to you. I am Brother Minister Alifullah. Today, I would like to share with you under them teachings. And when I say them teachings, I don't mean my teachings. I mean the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings. I would like to share with you from his book, Message to the Black Man in America by Elijah Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah. This book was written in 1965. Now, I know that my Christian brothers and sisters, they hold dear to their Holy Bible, just as my Muslim brothers and sisters hold dear to their Holy Qurans. However, this particular tome, this book here, for me, is the holy book, Message to the Black Man in America. This is the book that teaches us the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding about ourselves. In the capsule, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us not to look up to God or to look down for the devil. He teaches us that God and the devil are real. They're not magical myths that you misinterpret in scriptures, but the real God is black people. The real devil is white people. Real heaven and real hell is nothing but conditions of life on the planet Earth that we live upon. We make and unmake our own heaven and our own hell. Today, I would like to share with you something about Yakub. A lot of people consider Yakub a myth. Some people consider the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in general to be mythology. Some people say, oh, he only taught that because it was a way to elevate the consciousness or to lift the self-esteem of black people. Some people believe believe that he taught about Yakub as a form of reverse psychology. I believe that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad believed in everything that he taught us, that he really did meet Allah God who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad, that the black man really is God, and that the white man really is the devil, and that we are living in the judgment, the judgment, or the judgmental. In this book, Message to the Black Man, which is a beautiful book, a powerful book. If you never read this book, you can get this book downloaded today very cheaply on our official website at ElijahMuhammadOnly.com. I would like to give you some of the science of Yakub. And when I say science, what I want to do is show you historically, scientifically, according to the laws of nature and reality, is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings on Yakub talking about a man, a myth, or mathematics? We're going to look into this. On page number 103, titled The Making of Devil, he teaches us, you have learned from the reading of history that a nation's permanent success depends on its obedience to a law. We have seen the white raised devils in heaven among the righteous, causing trouble, making mischief, and causing bloodshed until they were discovered. They made trouble for 6 months right in heaven, deceiving the ancient original people who were holy. But when they learned just who was causing the trouble, they, as you have learned, cast the troublemakers out into the worst and poorest part of our planet Earth. They were punished by being deprived of divine guidance for 2,000 years, which brought them almost into the family of wild beasts, going upon all fours, eating raw and unseasoned, uncooked food, living in caves and treetops, climbing and jumping from one tree to the other. Even today, they like climbing and jumping. The monkeys are from them. Before that time, there was no such things as monkeys, apes, and swine. Read the Holy Quran, chapter 18. Now, here the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gives us a preliminary introduction to his subject on Dr. Yakub by teaching us that, contrary to the myth of white world supremacy, originally black people were not slaves. Originally, black people were living in their own land amongst their own people, living a peaceful and righteous existence. But we were not just colonized, but we were actually destroyed by a foreigner, a grafted devil. And they came into our midst and they made mischief for 6 months, right in heaven. Not a heaven in the sky on the clouds, but a heaven right here on the planet Earth. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes on to explain, and I like to quote various excerpts directly from his book. They deceived our fathers and are now deceiving the children under many false disguises, as though they want to be friends of the black man, such as integration and intermarriage. The devil said to Allah, I shall certainly come upon them from before them and from behind them, and from their right and from their left, and thou wilt not find most of them thankful. Holy Quran, chapter 7, verse 17. This is being fulfilled before our very eyes today. The devils are doing both. They come to the so-called Negroes as friends and as open enemies. They go before them changing the truth into false and come behind the truth bearer to the so-called Negroes speaking evil of the truth. They threaten the so-called Negroes with poverty and imprisonment and make rosy promises to them only to deceive. They are telling the so-called Negroes that they realize that they used to mistreat the Negroes, but now they are going to do better and forget the past. Let us live like brothers, for we are all from God. Along with such smooth lies is an offer of one of the devil's women. The poor so-called Negroes fall victim, and the devil men raid the neighborhood of the so-called Negro women day and night to make all desirous of hellfire. This is the way they have planned to beat Allah to the so-called Negroes. What should you do? The answer: stay away from sweethearting with devils. Surely this is the end of their time on our planet. said to the devil, "Get out of it, despised and driven away. Whoever of them, the Negroes, will follow you, I will certainly fill hell with you all." Holy Quran, chapter 7, verse 18. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes on to explain, some so-called Negroes who are in love with the devils do not like to see nor hear it being made manifest. We could lose them without ever missing them, for all who are found believing in and in love with the devils will be destroyed with the devils. And this is an important point that we find in 2015. In this day and time, a lot of people are afraid to teach that the white man is the devil, or the white race as a whole is Satan, is the devil. America is Satan. They look at that as the old teachings. They look at that as an outdated teaching. However, the world we're living in shows and proves to us each and every day in each and every way that the devil is still the devil. And as the messenger goes on to explain in this divine book, the devil is the devil regardless of place or time. Let us go on. The messenger goes on to explain to us about the scientists. He says, one can't judge them now, for they are not their own selves, meaning black people in America. We, the original nation of earth, says Allah, the maker of everything, sun, moon, and stars, and the race called white race are the writers of the Bible and Quran. Let us stop right there for a moment. Here, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching us a very important and powerful principle. He teaches us that the Holy Quran or Bible is actually written by the original people, who is Allah, the supreme being or black man of Asia. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad does not claim to teach us about the mystery God or God somewhere beyond the sun, moon, and stars. He teaches us about black people. He teaches us about our ancestors, that our fathers and mothers in antiquity are the ones who actually wrote what we call in this day and time the Holy Bible or the Holy Quran or the Torah or the Septuagint, whatever name or scripture you may claim. All scriptures come from a black source. Some people say it comes from a Kemetic source. We don't argue with that. We simply say it goes way, 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 way before Kemet. It goes way before Nubia, way before any concept that we presently have knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of. How long ago? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that it dates back to 76 trillion years ago. Not 6,000 years, not 66 million or billion years, but over 76 trillion years. So we've been on this planet that long, and we have been writing history in cycles or ciphers of 360 degrees. The earth itself is a cipher. The earth is a circle. The moon is a circle. The sun is a circle. The skin of your body, the cells themselves are circles. Your brain cells are circles. The sperm, the ovum are circles. When we look at the atoms are circles. The planets beyond our planets are circles. The universe is literally not a universe of the white man's string theory, but the black man's cipher. We say we build in a cipher. We build on a cipher. We are the cipher. Everything in this universe, every thought and everything travels in 360 degrees. The messenger says, and I like to quote him about these scientists, "We make such history once every 25,000 years. When such history is written, it is done by 24 of our scientists. One acts as judge or guide for the others, and 23 actually do the work of getting up the future of the nation. And all is put into one book, and at intervals where such and such part or portion will come to pass, that people will be given that part of the book through one among that people from one of the 12 major scientists, as it is then called a scripture, which actually means script of writing from something original or book. There is a significance to the number 24 scientists in the 25,000 years. The number 24 scientists used is in accordance with the hours in our day and the measurement of the circumference of our planet around the equator and in the region of our poles, Arctic and Antarctic oceans. Our planet is not exactly 25,000 miles in circumference. It is 24,896. And we, according to astronomy, don't have a full 24-hour day, but near that, 23 hours, 56 minutes, and 46 seconds. The change made in our planet's rotation at the poles is about 1 minute a year and takes 25,000 years to bring about a complete change in the region of the poles. The actual poles are inclines 23.5 degrees to the plane of its orbit. The original Black nation used 23 scientists to write the future of that nation for the next 25,000 years. And the 24th is the judge or the one God, Allah. Allah taught me that once upon a time, they made history to last for 35,000 years. Let me stop here and say this. My people must know the truth, the God's truth. The time is at hand. Now, here we see the messenger teaches us that we write history in cycles of 25,000 years, a year to every mile for the planet Earth. And that at one time, prior to 66 trillion years ago, we used to write the history in cycles of 35,000 years. So, when we study cultures such as the ancient nation of Kemet or Black Egypt, we see that they also wrote cycles in 26,000 years. So here we see the messenger teaches us that we now write in 25,000 year cycles, but we used to write in cycles of 35,000 years. So here we see a parallel, if you will, that people, Black people, write their history in advance. This may seem a little complicated for some of us, but let me put it to you like this. You in the present realize that you can say today, tonight, I'm going to have a salad for dinner. And tonight, you'll have a salad for dinner. You can write today that tomorrow, I'm going to stop at the supermarket and I'm going to get some fresh tomatoes and I'm going to get some red onions. And tomorrow in the future, you can use mathematics. Get up and your feet and your hands and your head and your wallet will bear witness to the prophecy or the history that you wrote the day before. You can also see in the present the past. You can remember what you had yesterday for dinner. So your mind is not limited by time nor place. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes on to explain to us that he is the messenger of Allah like this. He says to us, my people must know the truth, the God's truth. The time is at hand. They are reared and taught by the devils, and they know it not. And being ignorant of the truth, they offer opposition to the God of their salvation, who is the very author of truth. I am his messenger, meaning the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They do this because of the fear of the devils. They are made to believe that without the friendship of the devils, they would perish. The Bible warns them against the friendship of the devils in James chapter 4, verse 4. It reads, and I quote, whosoever therefore will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. The sixth verse of the same chapter reads, submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Do they dare resist the devils? No. Being without the truth of Allah and the devil, they are afraid, and that fear is the cause of their suffering and will be the cause of their destruction in hell with the devils whom they love and fear. So our lessons in English lesson number C1 asks the question, why does he fear now that he's a big man? We're not afraid of each other, but we're afraid not you per se, but many of our people, most of our people, especially those that we consider the 85%, the mentally dead, they fear the devil because the devil gives them nothing. The devil will try to intimidate you. He will use all kinds of technology to try to control your mind and your actions and your thoughts and even your tongue. You can't be afraid of the devils. You must realize that the time has arrived, that Master Fard Muhammad has made manifest our open enemies, and we have no right to fear today. We should not fear the devil, even if we ourselves may lose our lives. The time for fear is out. Our people have been afraid for over 400 years. The messenger goes on to say, they destroyed other people, cities, and opened not the house of his prisoners. None has fulfilled this prophecy better than America. She has destroyed other nations' cities, while she has not suffered the loss of one of her cities by a foreign nation, while preaching the freedom of her own people from the powers of other nations. She holds a whole nation, so-called Negroes, prisoner, and refuses to open the door of freedom, justice, and equality to them. I am for the separation of my people from their enemies, that they share not in the enemy's destruction, even though I may lose my own life in this daring attempt to save them by the plain, simple truth of God and power. It must be done and will be done, regardless of whom or what. It can be done in one day, but Allah desires to make himself known in the West as it is written of him. There never was one like him. He knows how to reproduce the universe. Think about that. We have a powerful God. We have a God today that has made himself manifest. See, Master Muhammad didn't come to make you his slave. Master Muhammad came to make you realize that you are a master. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to become self-saviors, self-believers. He teaches us to look in the mirror to see God. We don't look up to see God. He teaches us to answer our own prayers. He teaches us that Islam, real Islam, is mathematics, and mathematics is Islam. He teaches us that his teachings is based on nature, science, and haqq, or reality. The Holy Quran teaches us in Surah chapter 22, verse 6, Allahu ana al-haq. I am the God, I am nothing but reality. God is the truth, the sure truth, the pure truth. Our concept of God, our belief in God, our mistranslation and misinterpretation about God has resulted in us becoming spooky. We are superstitious. We believe in magic. We believe in astrology instead of astronomy. We believe in life after physical death instead of death after physical life. All of our mathematics is just simply off. And Yakub's history will help us better understand the world that we're living in and how we can make it a better world. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad explains, Mr. Yakub was naturally born out of the 30% dissatisfied. As we know, wherever there's a longing or demand for a change, nature will produce that man who will bring it about. Allah taught me that the present percentage of dissatisfaction is 98% near 100% with the present ruling powers. This 100% dissatisfied will bring about a 100% change. Many of us say that we're dissatisfied, but we haven't reached that threshold, that level where we are willing to give all that we have and do all in our power to resurrect mentally the so-called African Americans. The messenger goes on to say, and I quote him, Yakub did not bring about a 100% change, but near 90%. Allah said, when Yakub was 6 years old one day, he was sitting down playing with two pieces of steel. He noticed the magnetic power in the steel attracting the other. He looked up at his uncle and said, Uncle, when I get to be an old man, I am going to make a people who shall rule you. The uncle said, what will you make? Something to make mischief and cause bloodshed in the land? Yakub said, nevertheless, uncle, I know that which you do not know. Now here we have a beautiful science. Here we have Yakub playing with two pieces of steel. In nature, there is a natural steel that's known as lodestone. It's an iron that is magnetic. If you go to the North Pole and go to the South Pole, you'll notice that the North Pole is magnetic, and rocks that are rich in iron are magnetized towards the north. But if you go down to Antarctica and get those rocks, you'll see that those rocks are magnetized towards the south. As a child, I used to be amazed with magnetics. I used to see certain rocks just stick together, attract each other. This is a natural thing. You could take a piece of steel and hit it, and the vibration can transform it into a natural magnet. So we're talking science here. When we see that the messenger said that Yakub, and the messenger teaches us Yakub's history in different places and different levels and different dimensions, and he explained to us that when Yakub looked up at his uncle and said, Uncle, when I get to be an old man, I'm going to make a people who shall rule you, we find this almost word for word in the Holy Quran with a bliss. And it was at that moment the boy Yakub first came into the knowledge of just who he was, born to make trouble, break peace, kill, and destroy his own people with a made enemy to the black nation. He learned his future from playing with steel. It is still and more still that his made race, meaning the white race, are still playing with. Steel has become the most useful of all metal for the people. What he really saw in playing with the two pieces of steel was the magnetic power of attraction, the one attracting and drawing the other under its power. In this he saw an unlike human being, made to attract others, who could, with the knowledge of tricks and lies, rule the original black man, until that nation could produce one greater and capable of overcoming and making manifest his race of tricks and lies with a nation of truth. So here we see Dr. Yakub dealing with a mathematical magnetic law here, dealing with lodestone, just playing with it as a child. It was mere child's play for him. but there's a science there because we know that the Europeans use steel. Not that they are the originators of steel. There are ancient steel mines in Azania or South Africa. The people of Nippon or Japan made stainless steel samurai swords. So the Europeans know that the black, brown, yellow, and red nations already knew the science of steel. It's just that they used the steel for other purposes. The compass, the rifle, the ability to navigate in ships over the oceans. All these things originated with black people, but was never used for such evil until the Europeans learned those arts and sciences from our ancestors. And they was able to use the technology to master and conquer the black, brown, yellow, and red nations all over the world. Yes, if you go to any country in Africa, if you go any part of China, India, Arabia, if you go to the far islands of the Pacific, if you go to Australia, if you go all the way up to the North Pole or down to the South Pole, all in the Western Hemisphere, from North America, Central America, South America, Mexico, the island of Jamaica, Haiti, wherever you go on this planet, you will see a pattern where some European came into that native people's land and destroyed them in every way and on every level, and still is being used to do such. U.S. Steel in Detroit was the number one producer of steel in the whole planet Earth. They produced their cars, their helicopters, their jets. Not that these things are some original inventions, they're just rediscovered manifestations. We create a well, they study the well, and they manufacture a submarine based off of the technology that they learned from the original people. Unfortunately, one of the tricks of the devils has been when they would go into Africa, or if they came over to Brazil or Peru or anywhere the black, brown, yellow, and red people live, they would burn our libraries. They would steal our ancient books, kidnap our scholars and scientists and engineers, and they would take and plagiarize the information and make many think that it originated with them. But when you study it, you'll find that they actually are not the creators of anything at any time. Every thought and everything, good or bad, has its origin or root amongst black people. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes on to say, Yakub was the founder of Unlike Attracts and Like Repels, though Mr. Yakub was a member of the Black Nation. This is an ancient law. Our ancestors called it the law of polarity. Depending on where you go on earth, like If you go to West Africa, they'll call it Ife. If you go over China, they call it I Ching. It's known by different names. But here, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad uses spiritual science. He says, unlike attracts and like repels. Everything in nature has its opposite. Not just black and white, male and female, old and young, rich and poor, wet and dry, living and dead, but the very atoms of creation has a proton or positive force and a neutron, neutral force within the core or the nucleus of the atom. And on the outside, there's an electron or negative force. Out of this concept, the law of attraction, opposites attracts and like repels, we get our mythologies. We get the concept of a mystery God and a mystery devil, a heaven and a hell, angels and demons. All these things are really talking about a spiritual science. All myths are actually rooted in some basic truth, some plain logic, some historical fact. It's just that in this day and time, we may have lost the original story or the original report or the original records, but it's passed down through the people and it becomes myths and legends. So in this day and time, we'll hear about Usar, Osiris, and Set, Isis, the goddess, and Heru, Horus, and his brother Set, who was the brother of Usar or Osiris, who was the evil one. When you look at it, it's simply teaching one, that black people had advanced civilizations in antiquity, two, that there was simply a family feud and two brothers got to fighting with one another, and that the son and the wife sought vengeance. It teaches us about human emotions and human motions. But out of that, we come up with these magical, fancy tales that may seem like they're not based on reality. But everything that you hear about in ancient Kemet or Egypt is really talking about our ancestors living right here on Earth or using sciences to travel throughout their universe. But there's no magic. Every miracle is actually a mathematical wonder. It's just that we may not understand how they was able to do something in the past. Or we may take parables and similes and analogies literally. And the Holy Quran teaches us in chapter 3 against doing that, where something that's made plain, we take it as though it's symbolic, and something that's really symbolic, we take it as though it's to be taken literally. And that mistranslations, that misinterpretation results in misunderstanding. So when you hear about Dr. Yakub Shabazz, understand that we're talking about the man and his mathematics. But from that man and from those mathematics in this modern day and time, because we're talking a span of 6,000 years here, we have what's known as mythology. But Yakub was an actual individual, a human being, a real intelligent human being. On earth, he was a black man just like any other black man you see on earth in this day and time. Of course, he had what the messenger called extra large head. He was known as the big head scientist, as they say, but that's a science in and of itself because we know scientifically, genetically, there are some men and women, who are born with elongated heads. They have a larger than normal brain, and they're perfectly healthy children. It's just that their brain is larger than normal. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that by nature, the original man is born with a 7.5 ounce brain. He has 14 billion brain cells, and his thoughts travel on average 24 billion miles per second. If you took one neuron or one brain cell, you'll see that it could generate a power equal to 1/70,000th of a volt of electricity. You could get the huge brain of a whale or the tiny brain of a mouse. Nothing in creation, no planet, no sun, no star, no atom, no fish, no bird, no lion, tiger, or bear can outthink the black man. Every man and every woman came from the black man and the black woman. The black man and black woman is the first world's people. So, Yakub was the founder of Unlike Attracts and Like Repels. Though Mr. Yakub was a member of the Black Nation, he began school at the age of 4. He had an unusual size head. When he had grown up, the others referred to him as the quote, big head scientist. At the age of 18, he had finished all of the colleges and universities of his nation and was seen preaching on the streets of Mecca, making converts. He made such impressions on the people that many began following him. The Holy Quran teaches us that the original name of Mecca was Becca. Of course, those that study ancient Kemetic or Egyptian sciences will tell you, oh, that sounds familiar to them. You see, Becca, the Ba and the Ka, the Kaaba, the Ka and the Ba. It's talking about the spirit and the soul of the people. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the mind of the black nation has 7 portals or 7 dimensions: the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, the soul, the self, and the will. And we have 9 forces which balances our equilibrium: attraction, repulsion, cohesion, assimilation, dissimulation, creation, projection, reception, and intuition. You intuitively, instinctively have information encoded in your very nature on your DNA, meaning that a beaver can give birth to a beaver and it doesn't have to go to beaver school to learn how to build a dam. Engineering is programmed inside of his DNA. A little baby spider will be born with the ability to produce a spider web. They don't have to go to a spider college to learn how to spin this web. Birds know how to make that nest. Now, these are what you would consider lower life forms, respected life forms in their own right, but lower life forms compared to human beings. What power, what innate abilities exist in Black people? Don't look at us in 2015 and say, oh, look at them, they're just out there mentally dead. No, that's our slave state. But imagine if you was to go back in time. Imagine going back, say, 500 years ago. There would be no internet. That concept of electricity, rockets, elevators. Those things are not there yet. It's not that those things are impossible, they're just improbable because the people at that state or that stage of human development have not made manifest those kind of thoughts. And Black people in particular, and Black people around the world in general, have been colonized and subjugated by the white devils. Therefore, we are not only thinking other than ourselves, we're living other than ourselves. We're considered mentally dead in the graveyard. The truth or the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is like water and sunshine on a seed planted in good soil. In the good season, it germinates. But when you had the seed sitting in a pack, sitting in the dark, you can't see the potential that exists inside that seed. So Yakub had completed all of his schooling. He learned from studying the germ of the Black man under the microscope. Yes, we had microscopes over 6,000 years ago. That there were two people in him, and that one was Black, the other brown. He said if he could successfully separate the one from the other, he could graft the brown germ into its last stage, which would be white. With his wisdom, he could make the white, which he discovered was the weaker of the Black germ, which would be unalike, rule the Black nation for a time into a greater one than Yakub was born. Now here Yakub noticed that in the Black nation or in the Black man, there existed a brown man. Think about that for a moment. Inside the DNA or the genetic code of the Black nation, there exists Black, brown, yellow, red, albinos, white, and transparents. Transparents are babies that's born with no color to their skin. You can see that blue blood inside their little bodies. If the blood comes into the air mixed with oxygen, it turns red, but that blue blood is inside the baby, but the baby is born stillborn. The child doesn't survive. It's too weak or too grafted away from the original. So there's an Austrian monk known as Gregor Mendel, and he studied what's known as dominant and recessive genes. He studied all types of living things, including sweet peas. And he noticed that in nature, there are dominant and recessive traits. You would be hard pressed to find an American, white, or Black, or a male or female scientist or geneticist that would disagree with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's basic underlying premise that black is dominant and white is recessive, that black hair is dominant and blonde hair or red hair is recessive, that black and brown eyes are dominant and blue and green eyes are recessive, that the melanin in the original people's body is dominant while albinism is a genetic mutation. Now, I understand and respect that those that do not prescribe to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad may have a different conclusion. That conclusion basically may be Europeans came about through the ice ages. However, we considered that, but when we considered that, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad pointed something out to us. First of all, he explained to us that our melanin or our black skin is not changed through climatic zones. Like the black man and woman is the black man and woman regardless of where we went. Scholars such as Diop explained that, the actual first people to go into Europe were black people. You know, the people living up in the ice in Antarctica and the Arctic circles and the North Pole, living in snow houses or ice houses known as igloos, the so-called Eskimos, they didn't turn white after 16,000 years of living in cold. Climates. So when we look at the albino, they are albino African alligators. They are albino African lions, albino African giraffes, albino Arabian camels, albino tropical trees. Albinisms don't turn white because it got cold. They turn white because there may have been a nuclear explosion, like in the Nation of Islam cosmology and worldview, we explain and show that 66 trillion years ago, one of our scientists blasted away part of the planet Earth, forming our present day moon, sitting 243,000 miles away from the planet Earth. Such a high explosion scientifically would produce all types of mutations, even amongst clovers. So you could get four-leaf clovers because of a natural phenomenon. But anything that can happen naturally can also be intentionally done. So you can have a natural wind blow and pollination take place, and the orange and lemon can produce a grapefruit. At the same time, a botanist who understands the science of plants can intentionally take hybrids or intentionally take fruits and vegetables and show you all types of grafted byproducts that came from the original. That is not magic. That is not mythology. That is not organized religion. That is spiritual science right there. If a donkey has sex with a horse, it can produce a grafted mule. Those things can happen in 2015. So we shouldn't be surprised to hear about grafting. The messenger goes on to explain that he, meaning Dr. Yakub, said if he could successfully separate the one from the other, he could graft the brown germ into his last stage, which would be white. With his wisdom, he could make the white, which he discovered was the weaker of the black germ, which would be unlike, rule the black nation for a time into a greater one than Yakub was born. This new idea put him to work finding the necessary converts to begin grafting his new race of people. He began by teaching Islam, with promises of luxury to those who would believe and follow him. As Mr. Yakub continued to preach for converts, he told his people that he would make the others work for them. This promise came to pass. Naturally, there are always some people around who would like to have others do their work. Those are the ones who fell for Mr. Yakub's teachings 100%. As he made converts in and around the holy city of Mecca, persecution set in. The authorities became afraid of such powerful teachings, with promises of luxury and making slaves of others. As they began making arrests of those who believed the teaching, the officers would go back and find, to their surprise, others still teaching and believing it. Finally, they arrested Mr. Yakub, but it only increased the teachings. Notice that persecution and opposition simply builds resistance. That's a good thing. They kept persecuting and arresting Yakub's followers until they filled all the jails. The officers finally reported to the king that there was no room to put a prisoner in if arrested. All the jails are filled, and when we go out into the streets, we find them still teaching. What shall we do with them? The king questioned the officers on just what the teachings were and of the name of the leader. The officers gave the king the answers to everything. The king said, "This is not the name of that man." So Yakub was using the alias. On entering the prison, the king was shown Yakub's cell. "Walaikum," the king said, "so you are Mr. Yakub." He said, "Yes, I am." The king said, "Yakub, I have come to see if we could work out some agreement that would bring about an end to this trouble. What would you suggest?" Mr. Yakub told the king, "If you give me and my followers everything to start civilization as you have, and furnish us with money and other necessities of life for 20 years, I will take my followers and we will go from you." The king was pleased with the suggestion or condition made by Yakub and agreed to take care of them for 20 years until Yakub's followers were able to go for themselves. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Masfar Muhammad in particular, also is using a science like this. They want the American government to take care of us, to give us a separate territory, a state to call our own, and to provide for us for the next 20 or 25 years as a form of reparations for over 400 years of chattel slavery. So we have a science here that we should look deeper into. The messenger goes on to say, Mr. Yakub told the king, if you give me and my followers everything to start civilization as you have, and furnish us with money and other necessities of life for 20 years, I will take my followers and we will go for you. The king was pleased with the suggestion or condition made by Yakub and agreed to take care of them for 20 years. After learning who Mr. Yakub was, they all were afraid of him and were glad to make almost any agreement with him and his followers. The history or future of Mr. Yakub and his people was in the nation's book by the writers, 23 scientists of our history, 8,400 years before his birth. So Yakub's history was actually written inside the nation's book of life. So the government began to make preparation for the exiling of Mr. Yakub and his followers. The king ordered everyone rounded up who was a believer in Mr. Yakub. They took them to the seaport and loaded them on ships. After rounding them all up into ships, they numbered 59,999. Yakub made 60,000. That ships sailed out to an isle in the Aegean Sea called Peland. In the Bible, it's called Patmos. After they were loaded into the ships, Mr. Yakub examined each of them to see if they were 100% with him. Can't be successful with people half-stepping. And to see if they were all healthy and productive people. If not, he would throw them off. Some were found to be unfit and overboard they went. When they arrived at the isle, Mr. Yakub said to them, see how they, the holy people, have cast us out? Now, if you will choose me to be your king, I will teach you how to go back and rule them all. So here you have 59,999 people with Yakub making 60,000 loaded up in not one ship, but various ships going to the island. of Pelan or Patmos. At that time was 25 miles the circumference. Now it's only like 17 due to natural erosion. But they're going to the island of Pelan right off the coast of Greece and Turkey there. And some of them was found not ready, not qualified. And they sent them back. Overboard they went. So actually 60,000 didn't really go to the island of Pelan, but near that. So that's something theologically we want to be mindful of. The messenger goes on to explain, of course, they had already chosen Yakub to be their king at the very start. So Yakub chose doctors, ministers, nurses, and a cremator for his top laborers. He called these laborers together and told them his plan for making a new people who would rule for 6,000 years. He called the doctor first and said, Doctor, let all the people come to you who want to marry. And if there come to you two real black ones, take a needle and get a little of their blood and go into your room and pretend to be examining it to see whether that blood would mix. Then come and tell them that they will each have to find another mate because their blood does not mix. It was the aim of Yakub to get rid of the black, and he did. Give them a certificate to take to the minister, warning the minister against marrying the couple because their blood does not mix. When there comes to you two browner ones, take a pretended blood test of them, but give them a certificate saying that they are eligible to marry. Mr. Yakub's charge to his laborers were very strict, death if one disobeyed. Now here Yakub had his primary laborers, his doctors, his ministers. Of course, he had nurses also, the Elijah Muhammad explained, but he had his cremators and stuff. In this modern day and time, the United States government has three branches. They use the executive, legislative, and judicial branches to govern America. The Nation of Islam is basically comprised of three primary laborers: the ministers, the captains, and the secretaries. Okay. So Yakub taught them, give them a certificate to take to the minister, warning the minister against marrying a couple because their blood does not mix. When there comes to you two browner ones, take a pretended blood test of them, but give them a certificate saying that they are eligible to marry. I wrote a book called the FYMGT Marriage Book, and then I covered the laws of marriage according to the Bible, the Quran, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the American government, international marriages, polygamy, so forth and so on. But the reason I brought this up is because in the research on that, I found that the modern day blood test that America uses when a couple gets married is not a mandatory thing. People like Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, they don't believe in blood tests. So the government said, okay, even though you don't take a blood test, you still can get married in the United States. Because actually, the blood test was really recently instituted as a means of curbing the spread of syphilis. So it was the health department of the US government that recommended that couples take a blood test. And we know that America also was doing all types of experimentations and spreading diseases, particularly amongst black men, through blood tests. So this concept of a blood test is not something new, and Yakub was using it. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad goes on to explain to us Mr. Yakub's charge to his laborers was very strict: death if one disobeyed. They didn't know what Yakub had in mind until they were given that labor to do. He made his laborers, from the chief to the least, liars. The doctor lied about the blood of the two black people who wanted to marry, that it did not mix. The brown and black could not be married, brown only. The doctors of today hold the same position over the people. You go to them to get a blood test to see if you are fit to be married. Today, they say it is done to see if there are any contagious germs in the blood. I wish that they would enforce such a law today. Keep the white from mixing with black, just the opposite. Perhaps we could remain black and not be disgraced by a mixture of all colors. In the days of Yakub's grafting of the present white race, a new and unlike race among the black nation for 600 years, his law was that they should not allow the birth of a black baby in their family, but the white devil should mix their blood with the black nation in order to help destroy black. But they should not allow the black to mix with their blood. His aim was to kill and destroy the black nation. Now, in this modern day and time, you notice during European expansion, wherever they colonized the people, if the people were a minority, they preached integration and wanted to assimilate that people into the broader white pool, if you will. But when they would go to like Africa or China or India, they had all types of segregation laws. They had all types of apartheid